And so it really takes off in Baghdad, and you find me, flying on a helicopter going into this war zone. And then it could be one part travel adventure story, but I've really wove our life into it. And it became the story of me, of us, my family. And, it was also like the story of me and my best friend who have not lived close together in decades, really. But that friendship. And so if you love travel adventure, definitely pick up the book. You won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for the hope and inspiration in your own life and healing journey, I cover that as well. It really is a book that I think can touch a lot of people on a lot of different levels.
Today on The Beautiful Side of Grief, we are exploring a journey from war-torn Baghdad to the sunny Caribbean and many countries in between through the eyes of a diplomat's wife who, during all of this, struggled with infertility, pregnancy loss, parental loss, and so much more, all the while readapting to strange new lands and dealing with a complex chronic condition. Yep, that sounds like a pretty heavy load. Though in the midst of this, Vashti Kanahele also discovered fabulous new cultures, places off the beaten track, and a resilience and strength to take control of her health. She has just released a book, Passports and Parasites. Don't you just love that title? It takes you from the exotic to the grassroots of life, literally, which is receiving fabulous reviews. And in the past few years has become a functional medicine coach and now resides in Virginia with her husband and two gorgeous girls. So I'm excited to explore all this and more with her today. So a very warm welcome to The Beautiful Side of Grief, Vashti.
Thank you so much for having me on today, Helen. It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone.
First up, they say that we always find another country that feels like home from the moment that you arrive. And that was certainly the case for me when I traveled. Did you find such a country on your travels?
So many different places. And I would say that one that really feels like home to me to this day is Lebanon.
Oh, what made you feel that way? What was it about that place?
I just loved the culture, the people, the history there. It's a gorgeous country, delicious food. And so I just always felt like home. And that is kind of stepping in front of our story here. It is where I was able to conceive my first child. So it has a special place in my heart.
Oh, yes, because that's a journey in itself. So just before we get into all of that, just share with us your background and just so we can get a better understanding of who you are and what your journey has been, because it's pretty fascinating.
Thank you. Sure. I am the spouse of a diplomat. My husband is a diplomat in the U.S. Diplomatic Corps. And we have been overseas for most of the last 15 years. I was working in international development during those early years together. And then through my story and getting sick with Lyme disease and infertility and having all of these different things happen to me, I switched paths and became a functional medicine coach, working closely with a naturopathic doctor. And really, if you want to go way back, it's funny because I'm just really a small town girl. From pretty rural America and living this whole other life that I never saw myself living.
I know, because, oh my gosh, it just sounds like when we hear diplomat's wife, we just imagine you just living the life of luxury, going to all these exotic places and doing all of those wonderful things, experiencing new cultures, all that sort of thing. But I'd love to have you share with us what it was like experiencing fertility issues in a country that isn't home. How do you just navigate that, culturally and with their medical system?
Yeah. We had had a miscarriage early in our marriage in 2008 when we were living in the United States. And that was one of those things where it was like, oh, there's no heartbeat. You've had a miscarriage. Go home. We're sorry.
Mm.
And, sort of just you're in and out in the emergency care system. And that was in the US. And we moved to, when we were in Beirut, Lebanon, we had been trying to have children and we had suffered another miscarriage. And it was honestly, I felt more taken care of there than I did in my own home healthcare system. The doctor there immediately started running tests to see what was going on, whereas in the US, I have friends who've had many, many miscarriages and no one really ever checked it out except for to say, sorry, try again and keep going. And so it was hard in the aspect that I was far away from my family. And sometimes you really just want your mom or your best friend. But I was lucky to have a really wonderful community at our embassy there, and as well as having Lebanese friends, and everyone really rallied behind us in that initial miscarriage. But it was still a totally different healthcare system. So really navigating that, and just trying to find your way when you're so far away from home. I know what to expect in the US healthcare system, for better or worse. And then there it was just like, okay, we're going to do this. I had a Lebanese nurse that worked at the embassy that helped me get set up with a reproductive endocrinologist that was highly regarded in the Lebanese and international community in Beirut. And so seeing him was really, really helpful. He's the reason that we have kids today. I truly believe that. And then it was, okay, you have a blood clotting disorder. What are we going to do with this? And, having to get the medication that's not necessarily available on the local market, and just hoping that everything would work out. But really having that community help me get through those really tough times, because we were having the miscarriage. And at the same time, the Arab Spring, if you remember, was going on at that time, where across the Arab world, there were in that whole region, there were uprisings, and wanting a more democratic government and things like that. And so we were very much wondering what was going on. So there was that personal stress of, okay, we're trying to have a baby. It's not working. We're going through all of these different tests. And then, oh goodness, what is happening right here regionally around us? And how is that going to affect us? And then my husband had to leave and go to Syria. And there was a very, very trying situation when he was in Syria. And this was like immediately on the heels of having the miscarriage. And I just had to drop like sort of those feelings the grief. You talk about this in your podcast all the time. And I just never was able to fully grieve that miscarriage until I wrote the book. I realized this when I was writing the book. I had just moved on to this next thing that was right in front of me, and never sitting with that grief and processing it until like a decade later, literally.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, I believe miscarriage is such a hidden grief. Like people just do not talk about it, are not able to freely share it and process it in a healthy way. You had lots of other things going on, but nonetheless, like you said, when you were in the States, you know of many people that have had multiple miscarriages. Sorry, go home. But going through each and every one of those is devastating on your system, hormonally, emotionally, physically, in so many different ways, and you're supposed to just get on with it.
Yeah.
So that's such a tough thing. So it was writing about it in your book that actually triggered you just to then process that. How did that look like for you?
I was writing and I thought, okay, I'm going to write this part about the miscarriage. This is coming up. And I thought, okay. And I cried so much. It was the most healing thing I could have done for myself, was to write this book on many levels. Yeah. Besides being a journey of self-discovery, I was able to truly heal in ways that I hadn't allowed myself to do because I was in that. You're writing this down and you're reliving it and you can feel it, emotionally, physically, all of it. It's just surrounding you again. And then you go back through and you edit the book and you're doing that again. So multiple times I was reliving these moments. And while it was really hard, it was so therapeutic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just getting it out of your system and you don't realize and just how much you just stuff away, tuck away to deal with
Absolutely.
it at another time. And and that all impacts on your health overall as well.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned about the power of community surrounding you and helping you during that time in Lebanon. Just share with us some more about that because I think this is another thing that in many countries we've lost. I know here in New Zealand, we used to have very powerful communities and now we just see more individuals. And so just share with us the value of having a community wrap around you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that we're missing in the United States as well on so many different levels. And when it comes to something like having a miscarriage and being able to have that community around you, it was just people stopping by. We lived on a compound, so we all lived and worked in the same place. So it was very much sort of like a college sort of situation. Where everyone's living close together, but people just stopping by. How are you doing? People bringing me food or just sitting with me while I slept or whatever, And then my husband had to leave. So just knowing that there were other people there with me, that I wasn't alone. And I think so often people are alone. It's something that is universally a problem, a real tragedy now. That was really highlighted, I think, by the pandemic, is this aloneness. And I think it's really important as a global community to find community again.
Yeah.
Because as one, we're stronger together, to use that adage. We are really just stronger together and we can help lift each other up. And there are times, where you're the one that needs to be lifted up. And then there's the times where you can be the one doing that lifting. And it's been something that I've taken through all of our travels. We've moved 7 times internationally and it's finding that community because your life happens regardless of where you are in the world.
Yeah. You're right there. And I just feel like we have so many elderly people who really paved the way for us in so many different ways, who, like you say, are sitting in homes by themselves without that beautiful community wrapped around them. And to me, that's just such a tragedy, isn't it? And then I see so many young people who are leaving home and again are out on their own trying to fend for themselves. So, that's something very, very dear to my heart. And, it does worry me. So I hope we're moving more back into that. Let's be a community. Let's help each other in whatever way we can. Yeah. You also experienced that with your father-in-law, didn't you, when he passed away while you were overseas?
Yeah, the community really rallied around us because we were far away and my husband found out that his father was ill and he traveled quickly and then he came back down to Curacao and we were in the Southern Caribbean then. And when his dad did pass away, our community was there, like just every day, all the meals being brought to us, so we didn't have to think about all the little things of life. And it helped me be able to support my husband more as well because of this support that was being brought in by the community. And, that was wonderful. We had a situation when we lived in Cambodia where my daughter got very ill and we had to leave. And again, the community was right there we had guests and they came and took care of our guests and we got on a plane and went to Singapore to get my daughter the help that she needed. And, people were just there to take care of us.
Yeah, special, isn't it? Yeah, beautiful. So what is it about loss that has made your family stronger? How do you feel like you as a family have grown from that?
I think we've had a lot of loss in the last few years, collectively and as a family.
Mm.
And I think that, it has brought us to this point where we are just closer. And I don't really know how to describe how, but through that, we became a much stronger unit. And I think part of that was writing the book and sort of going through these things with my husband again and talking about them brought us closer together, experiencing them even being far away from other communities. We had to rely on ourselves, even though we had our community, certainly, but we didn't have our parents with us or our best friends or, anything like that. So just finding that way together through those difficult times has really brought us closer together.
It's also just being able to step back, isn't it? And just being able to see, like you say, everything that you've gone through and how incredibly strong and resilient you are to be able to have got through all of that, because sometimes we forget to do that, and we forget we're sort of thinking, focusing on the things that we're not perhaps so great at, and forgetting to acknowledge those incredible times that we've just, knuckled down and done what we needed to get through them. I think that's so very important to do.
Oh, you're so right on that. So right, Helen, because I often will be like, well, I didn't do this, I haven't accomplished that or whatever. And then I keep going back to writing the book, but it was this very therapeutic thing. And it made me realize, I was like, oh, there's been a whole lot, a whole lot that's happened.
Yeah. When you put it down on paper and you go, holy heck.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I imagine, Vashti, being a diplomat's wife, people perceive you as strong and capable and able to navigate anything that comes your way. So how was it for you having a chronic illness and all that entails? Were you able to be open with people straight off the bat about what you were facing, or was it something that you sort of kept quite to yourself about just within your family? Because I think it's about relationships. Often you have to develop the relationships and the trust to be able to open up and share, don't you?
Yeah.
So how was that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good question, because I was diagnosed with Lyme disease in 2015 when we had just moved back to the U.S. for our tour in the U.S. And, I didn't tell a lot of people because with invisible illness, it's really hard for people to understand, like, oh, I don't have the energy to do this today, or I'm sorry, you're canceling all the time. You're feeling kind of bad about a lot of different things. And people don't necessarily understand that because they can't see it.
No, but you look good.
The many years of healing. Thank you. but they will also be like, you don't look sick.
Yes, exactly. And that was the point I was making.
Yeah.
That is what I had in my journey a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't look sick.
Exactly. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, you're right. Like, you don't look sick. So they don't understand. And they just kind of give you this look and then kind of move on. Right. And they think that the next time you're going to be fine. The next time they ask you to do something, or just why you're not feeling well. So that was really hard. And I didn't tell a lot of people. When we moved, we had to live in Texas for a little while, and I was away from my care providers, which was also really difficult to navigate living far away from the people that you really need help from. And then when we moved to Nigeria, I really, really struggled. I was telling myself that I wasn't as sick as I really was, and really just trying to be strong. Like you said, oh, you're a diplomat's wife. You can just go on. You're strong. You can navigate this next thing, this next big move. And I didn't do very well at that. Honestly, I was really struggling mentally and physically when we moved there. And so then it was about like, okay, now I've moved to this new place and I'm the sick person. And I don't really want to tell people I'm the sick person, but I kind of have to. But I don't know any of these people. So who do I trust with that?
Exactly.
Because it's a big thing. And so it was really challenging. I struggled a lot. And eventually I made a really good group of friends who did know. But not certainly I didn't share it widely, I wouldn't say.
Yeah. How stressful is it being a diplomat's wife? Like you say, we have this perception, but is there a lot of stress wrapped in there?
I would say so. I mean, people think, oh, you're a diplomat's wife. You're going to parties and
Mm-hmm.
leading, the high life, and it's all of these lovely things. And certainly there are elements to that sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But we've also lived in a lot of different places that aren't necessarily the easiest places to live, and they all have wonderful things about them. But they had their own stressors. Living in a war zone in Baghdad certainly was not like parties and, and sipping champagne all the time. You
Yeah.
have incoming rocket fire and people trying to hurt you on a regular basis. And Lebanon was also that. We had a lot of really stressful regional things happening while we lived there, besides our own things happening. And then, so I say, there's a lot of stress because you're always moving every 2 to 3 years. So you're making friends, you're putting the effort out there, knowing that you're building this community that is in many ways transient. And thankfully, due to amazing technology, we can keep in touch much easier nowadays. So these have become lifelong friends, but it's that reinventing yourself every couple of years gets very, very tiring.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that must be like. Yeah. It's like putting on a mask, isn't it? And just, that's tough. How do you feel that impacted your health, having to do that over such a long period of time?
I think it didn't help. Like I said, I made great friends. I think that the really big player in my health was living in really high stress situations for many, many years. And that, as we know, stress drives disease. I was
Number
already
one,
set
I
up.
think.
Yeah, for sure. And I was already set up to have autoimmune issues, just environmental factors, genetic factors, all of those things that play into it. I already had sort of set the stage for that. And then when I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and reactivated Epstein-Barr virus, which is like mono, um, it's no surprise when you look back at my story. Like, of course I got sick.
Yeah,
I was really stressed all the time. But I also thrive in that environment, which is something that I've had to really work on.
I get that because, I was considered like, A-type high achiever, go, 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 go. Yeah, I paid a price for that. I would
Yeah.
hit the wall and just crash. And in New Zealand, you mentioned Lyme's disease. Yet that's not routinely tested for here because we don't really have that tick here. So I actually only where I'm living now, years ago, stumbled across a functional medicine doctor who actually tested for that. And then that's how I knew that I had been exposed to that. But
Yes.
before that, everybody just thought I was a little bit kooky because I just roller coasted from one thing to another and never seemed healthy. And it was like, so what led you into functional medicine, which you're doing now? Tell us about that journey because that's pretty special.
Yeah. So once I was diagnosed with Lyme and EBV, and then 2 years later, Hashimoto's, so autoimmune thyroiditis, I had my 2 kids by that point, and I was like, I'm going to make a change and I want to help people on a different level. I had been working in international development, so definitely working on that macro level of helping others. But I thought I really want to help other people like me because, like you said, there's so many people who are sick but can't get the answers that they need. One, because people don't believe that Lyme is a thing, or they don't test for it, or like, oh, it doesn't occur here. Just using Lyme as an example, it can happen with any illness.
Yeah.
And so that I started working as a health coach. I got my certification, and it was during a trip back to the US from Nigeria when I was really struggling with my health that I met a doctor, Dr. Fox, who had joined my doctor's practice. And we started talking, and we had such a similar mindset. And I started to see my healing mindset shift because I had been sick for a couple of years at that point, and I thought, I'm never getting better. You know how it is, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you're in the midst of it.
You're in the midst of it. You're feeling terrible all the time. You take 5 steps forward and 12 steps back, you
Yeah.
know, and it just isn't working. And so I thought, I was working with Dr. Fox at that point, and I thought, I can get better. You know, it was having somebody who really wasn't just there to help me, because my Lyme doctor had certainly helped me start making those steps to getting better. But it was this
Hope.
hearing me and listening to me and saying, you've got this. And the hope, you nailed it. The hope that is there that I can get better. And so then I just kept going with, I'm a chronic learner.
I understand that.
Of all things. And so I was like, I'm just going to continue. And I would have loved to have gone to like naturopathic school, but with our lifestyle, that didn't really work out. And so I found the program through School of Applied Functional Medicine. I thought, this is wonderful. I can help people at a deeper level. And so many people want to just know that there's hope while they're moving forward in their journey, which is where I think the coaching aspect is so special, to be with that person through the journey, through between the doctor's visits, and really helping them navigate it every step of the way.
That's the thing too, because you're often so exhausted and your mind's in a fog, and you just, when you've been chronically unwell for multiple years,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to be a really strong advocate for yourself. And so that's the benefit of having somebody walk alongside of you, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
actually hear you and believe you
Mm-hmm.
and guide you towards that light.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you're in it, you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to have that person that can help you. And that's where I now work with Dr. Fox in this model, where he's a really good Lyme chronic illness doctor. And so he sees the patients, and then in between, I'm seeing them in between their visits with him. And we're finding such good success that way, because people are having their hand held by me to help them walk that journey. And I get the journey so often. I mean, I don't have to have the same illness as everybody, but I understand how you can just be mired down in the thick of it.
There's a grief in that too, that a lot of people don't realize they're experiencing. And it's the grief of not being able to live a normal, healthy life and do all the things that you want to do, that your mind says you can do, but your body just absolutely says no way.
And then you go down a whole really mental health spiral as well, because when you're not well, it doesn't affect you just physically. It affects every aspect of your body, in your mind, in your being. And so, yeah, I find it's what I'm supposed to be doing, is helping other people, advocating for other people. And then when I wrote the book, I thought, this is another way to reach even more people and to provide that hope and inspiration that you can come through this on the other side.
Yeah, and that's so valuable. I think so many people need those really grassroots stories where you don't hold back. You share, because you know that in sharing your warts and all, that's going to help somebody else know that they can get through it also. It's such a valuable thing. Are you feeling lost, anxious, unsure of how to navigate the loss of your beautiful loved one? Don't know where to head next? Yeah, I get that. Then you may be interested in the I've developed, a letter of hope and aroha, to help you find out who you are right here and now, and how you can navigate that without being on that emotional roller coaster, feeling out of control. That's a feeling I really disliked after Tal and then Adrian died. So I've developed an 8-week support program where each week you get an email of what worked for me, as well as other tried and true tools to help with grief. It's a beautiful, calming, healing resource that I think you're really going to like, and that you can use in your everyday life to find out what works for you and what doesn't. And the great thing is, you find yourself feeling stronger and more in control so you can work out what you want life to look like going forward. So if this sounds like something you would like to check out, head over to my website or check out the link in the episode notes. You're looking for A Letter of Hope and Aroha.
Yeah.
For those listeners who don't understand what functional medicine is, can you just explain for us now how that all works?
Yeah. So really when functional medicine, we're looking at the root cause of what is causing your illness. In the healthcare system, especially in the US healthcare system, I'm going to speak to that, is there's so much that is a Band-Aid. Right? So they don't really dig in. So I'm like a health detective, right? We're going to figure out what is going on with your health. And that might be using specialized testing outside of what you would find at your regular lab. We do different kinds of tests, functional tests, but it's really continuing to work on your case as we look for the root cause. And that might be that we're uncovering layers of things. This often happens where you think that you've gotten to one thing, but you come to another layer and another layer. And so it's continuing to work through that so that we can help you create optimal health.
Mm. A lot of experiences are exactly that, embedding themselves as layers, and that could have been happening from, such a young age, very early in your childhood, and you just go on and on and on. Yeah.
Right.
What do you see as some of the main root causes that are showing up over and over again?
Stress.
Yep.
Over and over. Of course, there's genetic factors, but you could be born with any sort of set of genetic factors, but it doesn't have to be expressed. They are expressed when we turn them on with things like stress, environmental things. That can be poor air quality. That could be living in a really unhealthy environment within a spouse or partner sort of environment. It can be poor air quality. When I lived in Lagos, it was terrible air quality. I was sick all the time. That was definitely not helping me get better. So I would say, and then loneliness is another driver of disease, which we talked about, not having community.
People get sick too. They do withdraw, especially when they've been told over and over again. It's just in your mind. Nobody's believing them. Nobody's understanding what's going on with them. And so,
exactly.
They can just withdraw into that.
They withdraw and then they just get sicker because they don't have anyone there supporting them. So those are like sort of those broader things that we see as root cause. More and more, everyone is complex. That is what we're seeing. So it could be that you have hormone imbalance that is a root cause of something, but at that's not the root cause because there's something that's causing your hormone imbalance. And a lot of that goes back to your gut health. And when we live in this society that we do, our gut health takes a huge turn for the worse, right? Because it's impacted by everything from what we're consuming food-wise, what we're consuming visually, our conversations with people, and it's where our immune system sits. So often it goes back to the gut and then those other environmental factors.
Yeah. Just on the topic of stress, I remember when I was doing a before school check program where we did this massive screening for 4-year-olds just to ensure they could start school in the best possible health. Part of that we were doing educating people on the stress associated with domestic violence, and even with somebody carrying a baby and being in a violent situation, and the stress acted as cortisol, destroying the brain cells in these little babies. And so right from the get-go, they were on the back foot, and it was like really good for a lot of our men to understand but women as well, but also men to understand the effects of yelling and treating somebody in such a way, and how that was affecting their partner and also their unborn children. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Everything now we're seeing that is happening in utero is
Mm.
really shocking. All the toxins that we're finding in the umbilical cord now, that is setting up generations of children for chronic illness. You've already set the stage
Oh, yes.
for that, along with things like you're saying, domestic violence. All of these things play into setting up a society that will be chronically ill.
So, what's the solution? Small question.
Community.
Absolutely.
If
Caring for one
only it
another.
was that easy, though, right? I mean, I think it is stress reduction. I
Mhm.
think it's community. I think it is getting away from this mindset of I must do everything on my own and being okay with asking for help. We
Oh,
are not taught to ask for help. I
I
also, this person.
you can see my reaction here, can't you?
Yeah.
Because that's taken me many, many years. Like, I'm nearly 60, and I would just say now, I'm only comfortable now asking
Hmm.
people for help.
Yeah. It's something that we were not taught to do. And so there are layers to getting to a healthier society, stopping using all the pesticides and the herbicides. But those are huge issues that we personally cannot probably take on, right?
Yeah.
You can educate around it. You can definitely reduce your toxic burden, but we're just so ensnared in this toxicity that's around us all the time now on varying levels. Reducing your screen time,
Yeah.
another thing that is hugely beneficial for your health. But I think as individuals, it's looking at like, how can I help others? How can I be of service?
I love
How
that.
can I create a better world in my part of the world? Because it starts with us. It starts with individuals.
I share with people, with listeners, something that's very key to my life is that, especially after when my daughter died,
Yeah.
being able to go out and help others actually was so healing for me, because it gave me a break from grief, but it also enabled me to be helping people that weren't so fortunate in another area. I was helping youth get to and from practices because they didn't have transport or supportive families, and we were feeding them at the practice and that sort of thing. And honestly, the benefits from just doing something as simple as that,
Mhm.
oh, it used to just fill my heart every
Yeah.
single time. And now I still do it. My highlight of my week is when I go out and I just say, now, how can I help?
Yeah.
Just use me. Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with you. That's so healing. And I think if we encourage more people to do that, because often they think, oh, I'm so sick, I can't go and do that. But there's always something somebody can do, even if it's just for 1 hour.
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
But we don't know the impact we're having on other people, and how we're helping and how that helps us. Like we've just been saying, it's mutually beneficial. And it's just something I think that we can do to make our world better.
Mm.
Not just our health, but our world is by helping those that, like you said, might not be as fortunate or have their own issues. It doesn't have to mirror the same issue that you're facing, but it's just putting yourself out there in that way.
Yeah. I agree with you, Vashti. And I think we do have groups of people now shifting and being aware of the importance of this. And I think that started with the pandemic
Yeah.
and people having to take stock of their life. And was it really, allowing them to be happy, especially when they got to spend more time at home with their family again. And for some people, they'd never ever had that. And
Yeah.
just the joy of just being able to just hang out with your kids and your spouse and quality time. without
Yeah.
there always being something to rush on to. So I think that was very, very important.
Yeah. I
Vashti,
agree.
share with us about your book now. Just tell us what your book is about, because it's a book, like I said, on so many different levels, and I'm sure people reading this are going to just love it. So
Thank
what
you.
what does it
Yeah,
cover?
it reaches across so many spectrums of the human experience. And so I hope it really touches so many people. So the name of my book is Passports and Parasites, and it's my memoir of the last 15 years of my life. I could probably write a whole other memoir in my childhood, but that would have been a whole nother book. And so it really takes off in Baghdad, and you find me, flying on a helicopter going into this war zone, and then it it could be one part travel adventure story, but I've really wove my life, our life, into it, and it became the story of me, of us, my family, and you is also like the story of me and my best friend who have not lived close together in decades, really, but that that friendship. And so if you love travel adventure, definitely pick up the book. You won't you won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for the hope and inspiration in your own life and healing journey, I cover that as well. It really is a book that I think can touch a lot of people on a lot of different levels. And so it really takes off in Baghdad, and you find me, flying on a helicopter going into this war zone, and then it could be one part travel adventure story, but I've really wove my life, our life, into it, and it became the story of me, of us, my family, and is also like the story of me and my best friend who have not lived close together in decades, really, but that that friendship. And so if you love travel adventure, definitely pick up the book. You won't you won't be disappointed. And if you're looking for the hope and inspiration in your own life and healing journey, I cover that as well. It really is a book that I think can touch a lot of people on a lot of different levels.
What were your greatest learnings from writing this book?
Um, that I had a lot of healing that I had needed to still do. I thought, oh, I'm in remission, I'm good, and then I thought, wow, I
Hmm.
had so much to work through. I found myself thinking, wow, I really love this stressful environment. I could do this. Writing the book was a whole nother stressful environment, that I pushed
Yeah.
myself right to the edge again. And I'm like, okay, take stock of this, Vashti. Like, this is something that you can continue to work on, is how you are taking care of yourself. I help other people take care of themselves every day, but continuing to do that work for me. The power of friendship, the power of community. That's something that I had really, Helen, I had known and had been paramount in my life, but I had never realized the importance of it in my own journey until I wrote the book. And I was like, well, there it is. This is the theme of the book. It's community.
Yeah. And actually, it's unraveling life, isn't it? And taking it back down to keeping things simple as to what is important.
Yeah. We
We
really
miss that.
learned with the pandemic, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Very difficult time, but there are a lot of real takeaways to this. And that's the book came out of after the pandemic. And you read about the pandemic part of the book in the book as well. And,
Because where were you when that broke out? You were in Nigeria.
we were in Nigeria, and the State Department went on what is called authorized departure. They authorize you to leave post, and they pay for you to go to your home country. And usually that is when civil unrest or a huge natural disaster has happened, or something that country by country that may happen. And this was the first time that it was global. So like everywhere that we have embassies and consulates in the world, were on authorized departure. And we had wanted to stay, but we weren't sure how it was going to go down there. And the medical care in Nigeria is not optimal by any stretch of the imagination. And we decided for my health specifically, it would probably be beneficial to leave because we didn't know if something happened, would we be able to be medevaced or evacuated out, right?
Right.
Everybody was trying to be evacuated across the world, right? There was no safer place than one place than the other.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
it was like, what do I do? And we went around and around as a family about what to do because we wanted to stay together. But ultimately, I made the decision to leave with our two daughters and go to the Seattle area while my husband stayed behind because he's essential staff and he couldn't leave. I mean, he would be
Oh,
there until the
really? So
embassy
you
is
were
closed.
separated?
Yeah, we were separated. And that was a really difficult decision. And I went home to Seattle, home-ish. I don't really have a home, and it was wonderful there because Dr. Fox is in Seattle, my mom, my best friend. So there were people that were there, not that we were seeing everybody, but it was still nice to be there. And that's where I really had a complete breakdown, though. I was like the safest I should have ever been. And that's where I completely, I was diagnosed with PTSD. It was all the years of the things that had happened, not dealing with them, all
Wow.
culminating in this quarantine house that I was in with my daughters. So then, long story short, several months went by. My husband's tour in Nigeria ended. He came to the US, and then we went down to Curacao in the Dutch Caribbean, just off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia. And that's where we were from 2020 until the 2023.
Not such a bad place to be, is it?
No, it was actually really lovely. For the most part, when we got there were no cases on the island. They also weren't allowing any commercial airlines in, and that works well for an island for a point, right? And then because it was an island and it's warm all the time, we were able to be outside.
Yeah.
And that was really when we fell in love with mountain biking. You were saying, you're finding these things that you're doing as a family, and you're so right. We really came together as family, spending so much time together, being able to go out, and we got the last couple of bikes that were being sold at the bike store on the island, and we're just like, okay, we're going to go ride our bikes now. And so it was a nice place. The weather was always lovely for the most part. So lots of outdoor time. We really were able to go on with life for the most part as if it was normal. There were a few times that the kids weren't in school when the numbers would get too high or whatever, because the hospital would get overwhelmed. And so they would then put restrictions in place for the population of the island because they just couldn't. Where are you going to send people? Like the hospital was completely overwhelmed. But overall, it was really an excellent place to be during COVID.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite things during that time was just walking. I was lucky. I lived in a rural area that was very close to a town, so I had the best of both. But I could just walk these back country roads, and there was no traffic, and there was nobody on them, and I would just walk, and I'd find a different way to walk each time, and so I'd be discovering new things. But it was magical. It was treasure that time,
and not having all the. I mean, there was plenty of stress, but not having the go was hugely beneficial. And now I find myself, as we're obviously back in this go, and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
And it's good to recognize that, because that's what we were not recognizing. We just thought that was life, get on, deal with that. But now we know that it can be different. So we can try and choose to do things differently.
Yeah.
Vashti, what does your life look like for you now, today?
Today, we're back in the United States. We live in the DC area for a couple of years. And it's pretty much just right now, it's promoting the book. It's people asking me if I'm writing another book. It's getting great reviews, which is just exciting. And all you can ask for as an author is to touch other people's lives. And, I'm just a mom and a business owner and a wife. And in my day-to-day is pretty much like everybody else is.
Never just.
No, you're right. You're right. Never just, exactly. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like everyday life right now. And it's interesting to come back after being away we were gone for 6 years, and just I I don't know. There's so much to take away from when you live in other places, and then incorporating that into how you live your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I always finish up our interviews with a couple of questions. So the first question to you is, what is the best thing that has happened to you so far today, right here, now, today?
Today, my husband had the day off, and we were able to just spend some extra time together, which has been really, really nice. So that has probably been the best thing to happen today. And then, and talking to you, this has been lovely.
Oh, great. And I was just going to say, and here I am interrupting your time together.
No, he has gone off. He's gone off to get the kids. But no, it's just nice when you have these sort of unexpected moments, together, and something that we've really learned to value.
Oh, that's lovely. I like that. What is something that you are most grateful for?
This life that I never saw living. It has been filled with ups and downs, and lots of different stressors, but it's been magical in so many ways. I wouldn't change it for anything.
I know, to be in the point you are today, being able to serve others, help others on their own journey, you couldn't have done that unless you went through that whole journey yourself. And yeah. So sometimes we have to just wear it all, don't we, to get to what we really need to be doing. Yeah, I feel that too. When you have moments in your day that are not going so well and they turn to custard, what is your go-to to pivot out of that?
Oh, that's a really good question. Oftentimes, I really try to just recenter myself. I'm a big fan of breathing exercises and just really trying to recenter myself and knowing that things are going to be okay, or whatever isn't my fault, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say breathing exercises and getting outside and take it a few minutes to go for a walk and just breathe some fresh air and just separate myself from whatever it might be going on.
Yeah, great. What would you like to leave our listeners with? What parting comments?
If you're in the thick of it, there's hope, and at the end of the tunnel, you can get through this. There are other people out there like you. I think it's so important to know that you're not alone.
Oh, great.
That's my message for people, is that they are not alone.
Yeah, that's a good message. So I will have the links in the episode notes to your fabulous book, which is Passports and Parasites. And I've downloaded it to read because I was reading all these reviews and going, oh, I have to read this. So,
oh, thank you.
And I'm sorry I didn't get to it before I interviewed you.
Oh,
that's
fine.
Yeah, I often have so many books to read, and then I think, oh man.
I can completely understand. I hope you love it. It is everything. And so I've been overwhelmed with the reviews and the response. It's been more than I ever dreamed of. So I really hope you love it.
Yeah, I think I will, because those reviews are incredible and very deserving by the sounds of it.
You.
So I can't wait, and I'll let you know.
Yes, please do.
Share with our listeners how they can reach you if they want to right now before
You can find me at my website, VashtiKanahele.com. That's where you will learn about the work I do with other people, how I serve other people. You can also find your free chapter to the book there. If you want to buy the book, you can go on Amazon. It's available across all Amazon platforms, soon to be on other booksellers. And you can also find me on Instagram at Vashti Kanahele.
Great. And you're going to do an audio version?
I am. That is coming up. So yes, multiple people have asked me about that, and I really wanted to get it done, but I'm hoping by the spring that we'll have that Audible version out.
Fantastic. Vashti, I really appreciate you sharing your incredible experiences with us and that journey that's led you to doing what you're doing now in functional medicine and coaching others through that journey themselves. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be listening that can really relate to the information that you've shared today. And you've just given us all so much hope, so much inspiration. And I'm really, really grateful for that and for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. I hope you got some real value from this episode. If there's a topic you'd like covered, click on the beautifulsideofgrief@gmail.com link or go into the beautifulsideofgrief.com website where you can also leave a review. To get notified of new episodes, hit the subscribe button. And if you know of somebody who could benefit from this episode, please share. And until next time, please be kind to you and take good care.